but in fact, the people outside of America don't know anything about US geography either. So, I didn't clock to me that, if you have a HQ in Washington, of course, you probably don't live in Washington. You, you,
Oh,
you commute in.
technically, Hung, our headquarters is in Menlo Park, California, not
Oh,
too far away from Meta and Facebook and all those folks. But we have an office here in Washington, D.C., so that's where I am today.
yeah. Is that a good reason to be there, Yaz? Or you getting told off or something, or what?
I believe we're live on air, so I'm not going to talk to you about whether I'm here for HR meetings. Let's say they are senior leadership meetings.
Important ones that
Yes,
help Jovio go forward. Let's agree on
that's
that.
right. We're looking forward to an
Um,
amazing year, so that's why I'm here.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, welcome everybody to Brain Food Live on Air. We're bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. Delighted to be here with you every week, of course, bilateral, but sort of bi-weekly even these days. But Friday is always the premium slot, and it's a real pleasure to be having this series with our friends at Jovio, who are going to be with us every month, by the way. Every month we're going to have Jovio on. They're going to talk about a particular thing that they're doing that's really reflective of wider industry trends, but also kind of aligns really well with kind of a topic we in the recruitment space have been keen to explore for a while. So today's talk is going to be about the state of talent intelligence in 2026. And we've got a brilliant cast of experts to come in to join us. But no one more brilliant than Yaz Dalal here. So Yaz, wonderful to see you, sir.
Wonderful to see you too. Flattery will get you everywhere, Hung.
Indeed, I've noticed that that's true, particularly with you, Yaz. But for the folks who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, everybody. I'm Yaz Dalal. I'm with Jovio. I'm actually our Chief Growth Officer here. Super excited to be with all of you and talk about all things talent intelligence. Jovio is an AI-led advertising platform, so we support all the advertising globally for huge companies like Uber and Wells Fargo, Adecco, big staffing firms, making sure that they are able to optimize every dollar they spend in attracting talent and analyze where those best applicants are coming from and make sure that they can invest wisely without wasting their money.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we're seeing sort of companies like Jovio sort of expand scope and kind of take on a much more expansive function than previously, isn't it? I mean, I think some of the older folks here might know Jovio primarily as a programmatic ad solution, but now it's like much more than that. It's sort of going into career website build, AI sort of talent screening, and indeed, I understand some talent intelligence innovation coming our way as well. Yeah, is that true?
Yes, and in fact, we're super excited because just a few days ago, we launched Ask Jovio, which is our new talent intelligence platform, completely interactive. You know, Hung, we talked about, I think the last time we met, this concept that in the future, but already started, technology is going to get us to a point where all of us get to live like we are senior executives or the super wealthy. And we talked about how all the advantages they have with their staff because they can afford staff, all of us are going to get because of tech. And so if you can imagine that you're a CEO or a CHRO or a head of talent acquisition, and you might have an assistant, you might have an analyst, and because you're so senior and strategic, you don't do all the busy work yourself. You just want answers. And so you might turn to your Stanford MBA analyst or your amazing executive assistant and say, get me that data. I want to know the answer to this question. Where are our best people coming from? What are our hardest to fill roles? And they'll go scramble. They'll go ask someone. They might query the data. What we announced with Ask Jovio is that you have an agent to whom you can put those questions in natural language and get an answer. And the reason we built this is because most recruitment analytics historically, they stop at telling you what happened. What we see in our clients is that they want an answer to the why, the what if, the ability to query from a scenario perspective, to be able to go into the hiring funnel and understand what changed and why across that funnel, to get actionable recommendations on how could I have done this better? How could I have got a better return on my investment? What are my competitors doing? We provide competitive insights in our analytics service. Now we're able to query it and say, hey, I compete with this company down the road for talent. How much are they paying for similar roles? Just ask it in natural language, type it or speak it into your computer, and get a response visually as well as in text form. Here's a chart. Here's what your competitor is doing. They're paying $80,000 a year for the same role. You're paying 65. And to get that labor market intelligence across candidate supply, across wages, across talent demand, all of these real world labor market signals, rather than just have them in a scrollable form, which is what we're used to serving, to now be able to query verbally, just like you would if you were the CEO and you turn to your analyst and say, I want that report on my desk in the morning. You just ask the agent, ask Jovio, and the report doesn't wait till tomorrow morning. You have it in real time.
Yeah, that's it. I've just clicked on that link that Shazad. Thanks for sharing that, Shazad. I was about to ping that out. And yeah, I've just looked at some of the dashboards here, and it is like super impressive. You know, the ability to kind of interact. I guess is it real time data? Like, is the information sort of up to date to the second, sort of say? I mean, or is it tapping into a database that's cached somewhere?
So if you're working in a work environment where you need your talent data updated every second, I think it must be a very stressful place to work. But in general, we're updating on a daily basis. And so if you're looking for labor analytics, you want to know what the improvement has been in a particular job or a particular role from the previous day. That's updated. It's practically real time.
Yeah, real. I think daily is good enough. But that's crazy powerful, particularly as it's now very accessible to a larger audience. And in fact, that's one of the topics I want to explore with our guests today. Like, is AI actually unlocking the door to talent intelligence to many, many more people that was previously locked away? Because as if you're a CEO and you're instructing people, get me the data, there'll be a bunch of data analysts that will go and do that, but they're specialists to do it, and therefore it becomes a centralized function, an elite function, so to say. But that information, that report might drop into the CEO's inbox, but no one else. Like your recruiter who's on the operating floor at desk doesn't get visibility of this. They just get another klaxon warning saying, "Hey, work harder," or whatever it is. But a tool like this seems to be basically diffusing the capability, the talent intelligence capability across a wider piece, which is
It's
very,
not
very interesting.
you're not only diffusing and democratizing in terms of access, but I think what the feedback we're hearing from our customers that they like the most, two things. One, every company has their own particular metric that they're gearing towards. So again, typically a static reporting dashboard is going to give you generic data, but generic in the sense that it's whatever the global standard is. What is my cost per application? What is my cost per hire? What is my time to fill? Some of our more sophisticated clients, they want to measure further down the talent funnel. They want to see cost per first day start. For instance, we work with the world's largest e-commerce company. They are recruiting constantly for warehouse positions. They want to know not just the cost per hire, they want to know the cost per first swipe in the warehouse, the cost per first day start. We work with Uber. They historically want to know cost per first trip completed for driver hiring. And so with Ask Jovio, they're able to ask that specific question and get an answer. And so that's what we're going to deliver for them. The other thing that I think is very exciting for a lot of our clients is that they can both be predictive in the analytics that they want to get, but also retrospective. And what I mean by that is, oh, what was our cost per application for this job group? You get an answer that's always been available in the reporting. Now you could say, what would it have been if I had spent $5,000 more? What would it have been if I had spent $5,000 less? What would it have been if I had expanded to these locations? Looking at predictive, what do I need to do to be the most effective for this job group or for this role or for this campaign in this market? What additional what additional levers should I pull in order to drive a greater return on my investment? So scenario planning, what if and conditional queries, all of this is also possible within the Ask Jovio framework.
Yeah, that's really good. I've just, again, looking through some of the options here: source attribution, anomaly detection. I love that. Competitive intelligence, of course, labor market intelligence, all of it looks, it does look as if it's kind of distributing it to a much larger audience of users. Forget about recruiters, maybe even sort of hiring managers could dip into this. Very, very interesting. I presume this is a pay for service. So at some point, this is an upsell for companies on Jovio, right? This is not freely distributed. If you want this part of the package, you got to buy it as an additional.
It's because we're just launching it. We're happy to talk to anyone in the audience that'd like to learn more about it. And if you're interested in being one of the next few clients that we onboard onto it, we can talk about costs and be very flexible with you. We're more
All
excited
right.
about getting it into the marketplace.
Right, he didn't sort of say it explicitly, but reading in between the lines and inferring, he's basically giving you a discount. Guys, get on it. All right, let's bring on some of our guests and talk about sort of TI in general. I think this is a very interesting moment for talent intelligence. As this is part of the illustration why. But we've got some brilliant people who've been working in the space for a number of years now, and I want to pull them in to get their view. Let's bring Uta in. I think you've just got an invite to come on. Hang on. I've lost Erin somehow. Oh, there's Dave Wilkins. Let's bring David on. Sorry. Oh, by the way, folks, we didn't even do the sound check, but I'm hoping you can hear and see me okay. Is that right? Please let me know if not. If you didn't hear that, then I guess you wouldn't know anyway. But yeah, just let me know in the comments whether the audio and visual is fine, okay? That would be useful. It seems to be very slow, but we're getting people on. Erin is here as well. Let me invite Erin. Who else? You know what? I think we're struggling with the numbers of people we might have to bring on. So potentially we're going to have to do a round robin and switch people on and off. Because have I just gone off air? I have just gone off air. How crazy!
Your audio's there. Your audio's there, Hung, but we can't see you.
All right, please continue. Something's happened. Please introduce yourself on screen.
Uta, do you want to introduce yourself first?
I'm on screen already? I'm not sure yet. Okay, if I'm on screen,
I see you.
Oh, this is perfect. If you see me, maybe others see me as well. So I'm Ute, based in Germany, working for Indeed. And so what I could say, I lead with data and a former HR leader also in the recruitment space. So I bring both words together. And yes, I totally agree what you said. It's now the year for talent intelligence, but my perspective is it's not only democratizing it, it's also be careful how we use it. Because if it's not used from the right people, it can be also going the critical pathway. So we should be also really aware of it, what we do with the talent intelligence function.
I think it's a great point, Uta, because I know in Germany, there's also a different perspective on data and PII and what you can and cannot ask. Is there something in particular you think customers are concerned about in Germany?
I would say it's less about all the data privacy stuff what we have here around. My biggest concern is rather democratization means often everyone can do, and everyone is also capable to reflect and use the data in the right direction. But if we are really honest between ourselves, we know using data means also understand the data foundation, understand what you can do with the data. And honestly, I think I would rather put this as the year where we come from a data dashboard really to a data connection piece, where we not just reporting to the market or from the market, where we can run the business with the data foundation. And this is rather the most exciting thing with all the kind of AI stuff that we get around us. So this is just my perspective on it.
Thank you, Uta. And Hung, I see you're back. Are you online?
I'm online. I can hear everything. However, I'm trying to get Erin on, and I'm also trying to get Guillaume on and Adam on, and I'm failing to do this. So whilst I fiddle with this, we'll get on with the conversation. Uta, I actually want to kind of lay sort of some groundwork on this. Firstly, talent intelligence had like this weird moment at one point pre sort of AI. So there was a moment pre-AI where talent intelligence was really on a tear. This is, remember, War for Talent. This is 2021, that type of era. We have Erin. Thank God. I didn't do anything, by the way. I was hands-free, and Erin just miraculously appeared. So I have no idea what's going on, but we're going to do our best. Erin, whilst you're here, we might as well get you to introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do, my dear?
Hi, I'm Erin Matthew, and I am a talent intelligence researcher for Centene Corporation. And if you've never heard of us before, we are a company that manages government-sponsored health plans in the United States. So very interesting work.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. David, I've just invited you back on as well, and I'm going to try and get Guillaume and Adam on as well. Just bear with me 2 secs. We're just fiddling with what looks like a rocky system. But the point I was making, just to place TI into historical context, my view of it was talent intelligence began to emerge as kind of a distinct discipline within the TA space, certainly pre-AI, in the war for talent era. And the big driver was actually we need more talent intelligence in order to be more effective at hiring these super hard, difficult to hire people, software engineers, data scientists, and so on. And then, of course, AI arrives. All kinds of craziness arrives, geopolitics, complete change of how companies think about hiring. Now we've got a totally reverse market, loads of candidates flooding the marketplace, and we've got AI potentially doing all kinds of strange things and influencing talent intelligence in a different way. So how would you describe talent intelligence in 2026 compared to 2020, let's say? So that was the question I was going to ask everyone, but I'll start with you first, Uta, because you've been on screen for a while. So how would you define the difference between talent intelligence this year compared to what it was 5 years ago?
5 years ago, it was single reporting, living in several areas of HR, sometimes in workforce planning, sometimes in talent acquisition, sometimes in employer branding, everywhere not connected and always fragmented. 2026, my hope is, and I'm not sure if we get this really done already this year, is that we get this connected, that we understand it's not anymore a dashboard. It should be really attached to a business perspective and answer the business question around that one, and not just what we believe as HR needs to be answered, and to really help to drive the business forward. Because this is what we can do with the new AI perspective, combining internal and external data, have skills as the new currency, what makes also the development of skill shifts more easier to deploy, and also helps to reflect on needs for the company better placed in these areas. So it's not anymore a reporting tool. For me, it's really, really a business critical tool that helps us to be on point for the questions.
So what you're saying is, Uta, TI has matured, and it's actually kind of elevated in that period of time. Is your perception of it? Last 5 years, basically, it's been progressive for the function and the identity of the function within sort of the landscape. Fantastic stuff. Erin, I'm going to come to you in a sec, but we've got Guillaume here on screen, which is wonderful. So wonderful to see you, Guillaume. Been a long time. So wonderful to have you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, Guillaume?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Guillaume. I'm based in Switzerland, and I work for a pharmaceutical company called Takeda, and I work within the talent intelligence team.
Fantastic to have you on. I'm just going to share your LinkedIn there. Please connect with all of our wonderful panelists, by the way. Go to you first, Erin. How do you kind of view the last 5 years of TI? And I know you're kind of probably a little bit newer to the space because you come from a sourcing sort of angle. So take us through your perception as to how TI has evolved over this period.
I would say if I had to sum it up in one statement, it would be that TI now, compared to what it was 5 years ago, is a bigger responsibility, both ethically and financially, for anybody in the research space right now, especially with the emergence of AI being widely used starting in 2022. So I would say that previously, and I did do a little bit of TI work as a sourcer previously in my career. It's transformed more from being a real-time talent market overview focus to more of a forecasting focus. The future of talent intelligence, it's not reporting on the state of talent in whatever market it is. It's scenario modeling. The leaders that we're serving don't want to know what the market looks like. They want to know what happens, if they decide to delay hiring, if they decide to change their location strategy. So all of those are such a rebalance of, of what exactly TI involves in our roles. So I would say that, we've got, I'm sure we'll discuss this more in depth in the future, but credibility issues with AI coming into play with our work, and other things of that nature. So that is how I would describe talent intelligence now versus 5 years ago.
Right. So what I'm hearing there, Erin, is that basically the increased volatility externally, that's created the demand for greater organizational agility. That then creates the downstream sort of requirement for more talent intelligence. Like we need to know, and the people in the executive positions need to be much closer to what's actually going on to reality in order to be able to make the organizational decisions required. Fantastic. And we have Adam Wardlow here. Adam, wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining the show. Adam, can you quickly introduce yourself, who are you, what it is you do?
Yeah, hey, good morning. My name is Adam Wardlow. I'm with Intergroup Insourcing Solutions. I manage our recruiting and technology strategy.
Fantastic stuff. And the same question to you, Adam, sort of through all of the guests so far, talent intelligence over the last 5 years, where do you think it's gone from 2020 to 2026?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things we've seen is its ability to identify risk and issues before they occur. Our ATS, like many others, has a lot of data points available, but most of them are lagging indicators. So, by the time we start to see any trends in the data, our clients are often already feeling the headache and we're reacting versus proactively adjusting our strategy. So I see the ability to look at insights and predict, identify those risks, predict where challenges might occur ahead of time, as well as offering insights and recommendations for how we can address those. It's huge for our team and definitely going to make an impact with us and how we service our clients.
Yeah, super interesting. I want to talk about something that Erin mentioned. I mean, we talked about this a little bit offline, but again, be recently prominent in a lot of the news media, like the reliability of public information and even the availability of it, right? I mean, forget about the reliability on one side, but the availability is also now in question. A lot of this stuff, lots of institutions were very much dependent upon, and in fact, talent intelligence functions drew upon. So I'm here talking about the availability of employment data, unemployment data, job post data, etc. Where can we trust it in the same way as we did? Are we right to now doubt it? How does that then kind of create challenges and opportunities for TI? So, Erin, I wonder whether you could kind of take a little bit of a lead on this particular point.
Yes. So the one thing that we discussed, Hung, offline was that one of the somewhat unsettling developments in the US for talent intelligence researchers was when the credibility of foundational data sources kind of comes into question. And, in August this past year, the presidential administration fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics with the reasoning that they suspected that the commissioner made the jobs data bad in order to reflect poorly on the administration. And traditionally, government labor data has been treated as sort of a neutral baseline. And when that neutrality is contested, even rhetorically, it forces researchers to rethink assumptions that we've relied on for decades. And essentially, it's our responsibility to preserve analytical integrity when confidence in institutions is no longer guaranteed. And I think that in order to do that, we essentially have to triangulate multiple sources when we feel like we can no longer have one source of truth and disclose any uncertainty that we have, so that we can clearly separate data from interpretation. And that's something that I take very seriously, is to be as impartial as possible when reporting on information, especially as it relates to talent. Oh, you're on mute, Hung.
Sorry, I was on mute, and that's probably just as well most of the time. But in terms of it's hard to basically remove the politics from labor market data, isn't it? Because
Yes.
politicians obviously have a vested interest in presenting the best information, the best data, because there's political currency in that. And it's obviously very difficult to constantly talk about the negative stuff, because guess what? If you're in seat, you're going to pay a political price for it. So I think we can say, and this is me being generous to the current administration, if I can, we can say that generally a lot of the information might have been massaged in a certain way. But the difference, I think, with the Trump administration is perhaps it's a little bit more explicit. It seems like, okay, you've said something I didn't like, and you know what, we're gonna slap you down. And that obviously creates a very powerful signal, doesn't it? It kind of says, okay, Christ, that if I want to keep my job, I better, write the good stuff.
Right. And it sort of creates a precedent of how can anyone be impartial when, maybe the data isn't flattering to one person or another. And I think that's it's a very difficult predicament to be in any sort of research role.
Yeah, really interesting. Anybody else want to pipe in on this political angle? I mean, has it always been the case, and now we've just got like let's say, a more vivid example of this a politicization of the presentation of data, and therefore it's the same as usual? Or is there now like a higher need to do the triangulation and the greater effort required to actually validate the information sources? Anybody want to pipe in on this?
I would say from a political standpoint, I think in general, one of the challenges is understanding how to interpret data. Mm-hmm. And there's a company in our space that recently claimed that the labor market is now fully balanced because the number of unemployed and the number of openings are the same. All that tells me is not all of us got to take a data or statistics class in school. And I'm not a mathematician or a statistician myself, but I'm pretty sure if you have 1,000 openings in trucking or nursing, and you have 1,000 accountants looking for a job, that is not a balanced labor market.
Yeah, really interesting. Interesting point by Shannon in the chat there. Data should not come from the government. I mean, that's actually probably, I would have read that as quite a radical statement 10 years or so ago. But I totally get her point, because one thing that the US does have is that it has a lot of technology companies that do a lot of the data analysis work. And in fact, I've been reliant on them. They feature multiple times on Brave Food. They seem to be pretty solid in terms of information, particularly when they come down to things like, plugging in payroll data and all the rest of it. So it may well be that, somehow we come to a better outcome if the government kind of, steps away, or the information is kind of so politicized that it can no longer be trusted, and it becomes, a form of propaganda. Anybody else, any thoughts on this?
But it's maybe the European perspective, because I'm still sitting in Europe working for a global company. But honestly, the solution can't be, we can't rely anymore on official data. So it should be. So if I would look especially to Germany and could not rely anymore from our official data sets, I would say then something is totally wrong. But what it brings up into the play is we always try to rely on something like official data set. We rely on AI that can answer now everything. Aaron made really the important point. It's the human in the loop who brings back the stuff that we need, right? If we confirm that is the right data, if we are working on data literacy and everything around that to make sure that we analyze and go with the right perspective on it, then we are, I think, on the right way. And this applies also with what I said in the beginning. Democratizing data, it's fine. It's good to have some bots, some opportunities, but still we need the people who understand how to work with this data, and also how to analyze and how to maybe also find the problems into it. And it's not just a political thing, right? It's everything around us.
Yeah, I think I think over years, data has become a commodity. So basically, today, everybody has access to the same data because of the democratization of talent data, and not only talent data, but just, let's say, data. So basically, the challenge is not getting the data. The challenge is really to develop the analytical capability to extract signals from the noise, because accessibility creates noise. So today, I think the key point is really trying to, as Erin mentioned, to triangulate. But to do that, you need to have the analytical capability to do that.
And I presume that's in shortfall. I mean, I think one of the things that is obviously true is that data literacy in general is quite low in the population, and that, to be honest, is in some large part the fault of the statisticians and the people that put the data together, because there's also that weird vested interest of, creating a language that's very exclusive to a certain discipline. That's basically how you then create market value, and that's how you basically build a career. So there's a sense that it's being closed off from the wider population, and the wider population essentially is accepted as read. The insights, or the politician or whoever it might be that we elevate as the truth teller to interpret what is true for us. So let's say we all need to level up in terms of our ability to do the analysis, but we still may have that core challenge of, is there a final source of truth? David, let me come to you on this. Thanks for being patient and wrestling with the tech on this, by the way, David. David, by the way, CPO at TalentNeuron, so great to have him on the show again. David, is there a source of truth? I mean, this is the TalentNeuron's business, right? So if there's conflict between two sets of data, how do you know which one is true?
Yeah, that's a great question. I threw a comment in the chat as well around this hung, but I think for us, there is no single source of truth, right? And I think this is true for most of us as TI vendors. I don't want to speak for Revelio or Lightcast, but we all kind of follow similar patterns in how we approach this. And the centrality of the data usually comes from government census data. So that is a central source, an important signal. Most of us are also pulling in social signal of some kind, looking at publicly available profile data, things like that. Many of us are also pulling data from NGOs and any kind of public data set that's available via those kinds of entities. Many of us are pulling data from university systems and have graduation sort of rates and data related to that. And then, of course, there's job post signal that you can get, reasonably well via different kinds of data harvesting. So for us, at least, I mean, we're triangulating across all of those things. And there are times when government signal is a more effective signal. There are times when social signal is a more effective signal. There are times when looking at the prevalence of job posts as a signal of increasing demand is a better signal. And so, there isn't any, I think for most of us, sort of any one arbiter of truth. It's like using models and statistical frameworks and AI-driven machine learning sort of always on, always updating sort of frameworks that get us close to the truth. And I guess I would just add that as a caveat. Any of this stuff is directional. And when you have really strong data sources like you have in the US and the UK and Germany and really mature economies, it's pretty solid signal and it's very on point. As you get further out into economies that aren't as robust, where the government census data isn't as robust, where people aren't using social platforms as actively, university data might be sparse, it really becomes more directional, and you really have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and use it as part of your input, but not as like the gospel of truth, right? So that's how we think of it. It's sort of it's a sliding scale of the degree to which you fully rely on it and the degree to which you supplement it with your own internal company expertise.
I think really also, I think it's a great. Go ahead, yes. I was just going to jump in for a second. The collection of data is also something that moves very slowly and has a lot of lag because the labeling doesn't keep up with society. We talk a lot about jobs getting replaced, et cetera, but also the generation of new job titles. There's a huge lag. I would refer to these as unstructured shifts. New job titles come up. If the collection mechanism doesn't have in the drop-down prompt engineer or forward deployed engineer, as two examples of new titles the last year that we've seen, or new skill demands, right? if they haven't made it into government classifications, they can't capture that data. It'll get shoved under software. It'll get shoved under data analyst or something like this. And then the government's not even going to recognize it as something new for months or even a year.
Yeah, it's a very good point. There's actually a paper I'm probably going to put into the newsletter on Sunday, which is exactly this point, about how artificial intelligence might actually be helping companies create sort of new terminology to describe some of these emergent jobs, and the fact that it does lead the taxonomification, if that's even a word, the classification that talent intelligence ecosystem requires, because there'll be new jobs that basically don't fit into the structure. So where do you put it? And yeah, it's very interesting. So again, there may always be a lag. Very powerful comment, Yuta. Maybe that's always been true. Job titles don't mean anything, which kind of moves us to the next point. Like, are we moving from a jobs-orientated way to understand talent intelligence to, let's say, a task-orientated way? So instead of, let's say, job intelligence, more like task intelligence. There's lots of nods on this. So maybe this is now an emerging consensus within TI, but it might help the wider audience for us to just break that down in terms of what it means. What do we mean by like job intelligence? What do we mean by task intelligence? Anybody want to give this a shot?
I'd love to chime in on this one. This is a key topic of interest for me, and I've been talking a lot about it at conferences. I think there's two fundamental breakdowns that are happening, Hung, in my mind. One is the continuation of the skills dialogue that's been going on for the last few years, which is still a very valid conversation. But I think as automation has emerged and it's fundamentally shifting the way we think about how work is completed, which things remain human, which things are moving to automation, which things are hybrids, the ability to understand work at a task level and really to break it down almost like atomically down to the skills and tasks that comprise the work itself is becoming more and more important to then do things like automation prediction and understand the role that automation is going to play in my business, either as a driver of increased productivity signal or as a driver of increased EBITDA and cost reduction through headcount reduction. Either of those matter to forward forecasting of what that means to the business. With skills, you then get into conversations about skill adjacency and the degree of, talent marketplace. Who can I slide into this role that's emerging or is going to become a critical requirement for the business? So until you can atomize the work down to those two levels, you can't really get to solid talent marketplace and internal skill or talent mobility strategies. You can't really get to automation prediction and estimates there. You really got to break the work down to that level. And it's such a shift. I've actually started calling it work architecture as opposed to job architecture, and really thinking about the nature of the work, certainly encompassed in that as a job, but it's also tasks and skills and automation and adjacency and all of those kind of concepts like rolled in together. So I think you're hitting a really important point that I think is going to continue as automation puts pressure on how we think of these things. I don't think this is going away. I think this is only going to accelerate over the next few years.
Yeah, so the automation pressure might actually create an entirely new kind of territory that talent intelligence needs to apply itself. So again, we go back to 2000. The purpose of talent intelligence was basically to make companies like smarter in terms of acquiring talent. Where can we actually acquire talent more efficiently? Maybe 2026 onwards, it's about, what kind of jobs do we need? What clusters of tasks need to be collected together in human work? Which one of those needs to be automated? Erin, you wanted to say something here?
Yes. So, when we're moving towards more of a skills-based hiring focus, I think that when you more closely model demand at the task level, you can predict where the skills shortages might emerge in the future and which of those tasks can be redistributed, automated, and where we might also need some reskilling efforts within our companies. And then, when you solely rely on jobs-based models, the assumption there is stability. And if we've seen anything in the last 5 years, the job markets have been anything but. But when you have the task-based models, they assume change. And I think it's a more accurate predictor of where we need to go with the labor market.
And if I can add to that, I think we should really understand that the time of a classical job architecture is done. So this is not here anymore. We need to think about how we integrate these new hybrid way of working. And I'm totally with David. HR integration might be in the future a new field to really think about. And this team is just thinking of which kind of work we integrate with the human and the machine together. So this is my thought around this one, that I'm at the moment really rethink how we also structured in HR itself and how talent intelligence fuels this. And this is why I also believe task and skills are really super powerful to create this kind of flexibility, what we really need through, instead of having these boxes as in the past. This is your architecture, and there was not really flexible to move them around, and also understand how the technology will integrate with that. So it's really fueling us from my perspective.
Okay, let's chain this down from the abstract to the concrete, because I'm getting a bit lost here. Let's imagine sort of we're in this future where we have a task-based intelligence function. I'm the CEO of the business. I can kind of ask a jovial S-bot to say, hey, listen, what is my capability as an organization in these area of tasks? And basically, the AI should be able to tell me, okay, you're deficient in these areas, you're strong in these areas. Maybe it then recommends what we need to do. You got to upskill these folks here, or maybe actually tap back into the old talent intelligence value. There's a bunch of guys in Brazil that could really do this. Why don't you just get them on board in some other way? Is that basically what we're talking about? Is that the future direction of where TI is going to be?
I think you just crossed into SWP and the way that SWP and TI integrate, Hung, right?
I'm so sorry, David.
Right, like this is like the essential nugget of what's happening, at least that I see. Talent intelligence, people analytics, and SWP are slowly merging to become one thing, because all of the questions you just asked are actually about where is the business going, what's the business trying to achieve, what capabilities will it need over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Will we have those capabilities based on retirement prediction, people leaving the business through normal attrition? And given the importance of some of those things, where are we going to have critical gaps? And then the next level where you also went is then what do I do about that? Am I doing upskilling? Am I doing talent mobility? Am I going to hire? Am I borrowing talent? Which percentage of that should be automated, right? All of that blends together where you need to know the external talent landscape, you need to know your internal talent landscape, you need to know your business drivers, and then you need to bring all that together under one umbrella and actually have a plan and an analysis of where the gaps are going to emerge.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point, because basically, talent intelligence, let's be honest, used to be highly transactional. But today, with the help of technologies and systems and platforms, we manage to automate the transactional piece. So basically, we can focus on the strategic piece and the transformation. And the point that David mentioned regarding the consolidation of talent intelligence, SWP, and people analytics is, for me, I think it's really amazing, and it's like future forward, because when you think about it, before you had that famous equation between buy, build, and borrow. But today, if you think about the 3 Bs, basically you can add like 2 more Bs, and I think it's already like a famous framework. So buy, build, borrow, bot, and bridge. But if you want to do that, you need to be able to completely, let's say, remove job titles. Because let's say you want to know, okay, I want to know the the productivity boost that can be induced by AI on a manufacturing technician. This is not the right way to do it. I think one of the ways to do it is we can focus on skills, but we can also focus on workloads. So basically, the goal would be to dissect the different workloads for a specific position, and then to see and to assess the potential performance boost that can be induced by AI. And to do that, you need internal data that could be provided by people analytics, but you also need the external lens. And this is where talent intelligence play a big role today. So for me, that's the evolution of talent intelligence. It's really moving from like highly transactional capability into a more central and strategic function that is not talent intelligence anymore, but something like, I don't know, total workforce planning, or I don't know, how do you want to call it?
Yeah, so I think that might track a little bit along the direction of travel. Maybe talent acquisition is going. Where we seem to be folding back into the HR sort of fold that we've been, rowing hard away from for the last 10 years. So we're rowing backwards into it. But it may well be that's the inevitable future. Super interesting. Adam, I want to bring your views in on this, because you're like a kind of head of function right now, as I understand, and you've got these operational responsibilities. Does any of the stuff that the panelists are saying kind of chime with reality here? I don't want to say everyone's up in the clouds, but how does it kind of affect? How does it land or resonate in your worldview? As you've got like stuff to do, you've got people to hire, you've got all these things happening. Does any of this resonate, and what any parts that don't?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think the biggest thing for us was kind of the earlier discussion, the accessibility to data. At our company, we don't have a dedicated BI team. We've got our market leaders who have their core function, and they're not experienced in running different reports and manipulating the data to try and find a specific data point they need. So, talent intelligence, tools like Ask Jovio and being able to interact with a bot and ask a very simple question for, hey, my client needs to know this data point, tell me this, and have access to it, within seconds. That's huge for our business, and selfishly lightens my workload. I'm no longer getting all those requests coming to me. So I definitely think the data accessibility is going to have major impact, especially for organizations like ours. And then as we were talking about the skills-based versus job-based kind of focus, I think for us, another big impact that we see there, and we're trying to get a lot of our clients to shift to this mindset, is it opens up a larger talent pool when you're really looking at the jobs based on the task and the skills, versus a lot of these roles, when we're just looking kind of at the job or the title focus, have education or degree requirements that have been in place for years and aren't necessarily relevant to the job as it is today. So as we start to really look at those tasks and start to look at approach the job based on the work that's involved, we have a much larger candidate pool to pull from, and it definitely impacts our ability to recruit and find good qualified candidates for these roles who are no longer being excluded simply because of education requirements.
Yeah, and that was the original mission of skills-based hiring, wasn't it? I mean, as I recall, it was all about kind of getting away from credentialism, increasing top of funnel, getting more, basically providing more economic access to individuals that didn't go down a particular, typically academic middle-class type path. So that's great to see that in action. Your first point, super interesting, because it kind of was almost the first point Yaz and I talked about. Like, there's the improvement in technology actually like dissolve talent intelligence as an independent discipline? Does it enable, for instance, more people to do a little bit of talent intelligence at desk, such that there isn't a requirement for a specialist to go to for a report? There's some argument that TA may also go down this route, because let's say AI agentic sources are all over the place. They can actually pipeline for you. Does the hiring manager need the TA specialist anymore? Can they do enough of the acquisition with the tooling in order for the function, basically, which became a job, to devolve back into being a task, so to say? What are people's thoughts on this? I know this is like kind of difficult because it may not be talking about your career, but does talent intelligence fall back into normal work a day? It just becomes a task because AI can do a bunch of it. Thoughts on this, Ute?
I believe in empowering the hiring manager as well. If you have a good informed hiring manager, they can do their job as well. So I don't see this as that means talent intelligence or the recruiters are not so important anymore. It's rather helps that everyone has the same understanding, instead of having the recruiter telling the hiring managers, oh no, we might be not hiring in this region because there is no talent availability, rather go in this region. So having tools that I really can trust and that hiring managers, recruiters can use, I'm fully on board. Having just something used, I'm not on board, because then I miss the capabilities of data literacy, understanding is the data really right, bring this in the right perspective on it. So I'm here to say I'm looking forward if every hiring manager is equipped with talent intelligence, because this will be fantastic for future planning, for being more efficient, but also straightforward what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a very strong defense. We have a parallel here in software engineering, don't we? Where you get a lot of like sort of product managers now becoming vibe coders, so to say. And that's evolving into a little bit of a conflict with software engineers where they're saying, you know, it's like they're almost like overlapping capability a little bit. And they need to basically learn how the new environment, what that relationship looks like between the two. So I think the same thing might happen in with hiring managers. Anybody else's thoughts? Erin, your thoughts? Talent intelligence? Does everyone just do a little bit of this? Like we don't need to go to someone for intelligence now. It's literally on the fingertips of anybody who can speak to AI.
So I think that I've sat on both sides of the aisle with this. Prior to coming to Centene, I was working as an executive sourcer at PayPal, and we had our own standalone talent intelligence team. But oftentimes the requests for data or insights that we needed, they had a little bit longer of a turnaround time. So I kind of just took it upon myself to gather a little bit of intelligence to bring with me to these meetings with the hiring leaders, and they ended up being very well received. So, but now after being someone that is in a pure talent intelligence position, I would say that I would lean a little bit more strongly in favor of a centralized talent intelligence function, because I believe that credibility and consistency matter a little bit more than just speed. So I think that sometimes when you embed TI everywhere, you do run the risk of fragmented methods and conflicting assumptions. So that's just my personal opinion. I kind of feel a similar way when oftentimes talent acquisition functions want to embed sourcing into the recruiter's function as well. I feel like some people are really spectacular at running the full cycle recruiting process, and other people are really fantastic on the sourcing side. And when you have it centralized, I feel like the quality tends to increase that way when everybody has their own focused specialization within talent acquisition. I'm sure some people disagree with me, but that's kind of how I see it, having been on conflicting sides of both of those issues.
Yeah, really interesting. Guillaume, I'd love to get your thoughts on it as well, because you've been working in this space. I think maybe a similar journey to Erin in some respects, I believe. So what's your view on this idea of decentralized TI, I guess, across everyone's got access to it in small form versus a specialist function, you know, as we imagine it pre-AI?
Yeah, I think we can do a parallel with, let's say, equity research. If you look maybe 30, 35 years in the past, equity research used to sit with like highly specialized company, highly specialized platforms. I mean, you needed to have a strong background in finance to understand it. But then you had the vulgarization of all the equity data, equity information, equity research. And today, basically, anybody can access equity data, and basically anybody can trade stocks. Are we all doing it? I'm not sure. Do we all understand how to do it? I'm not sure either. But the real value, I think, is today, TI is able to connect the dots, because all the transactional stuff has been automated or is going to be automated. And there is no value added on it. But today, I think the value of talent intelligence is not collecting data. It's not analyzing the data. It's really building those insights and connecting the dot with the business. And the role of a TI function or capability is really to basically build something for your stakeholder so they're able to access reliable information and then work with you to be able to build those insights and connect the dots. So, and I think that's the way a few companies are already working with their partners, such as, I don't know, TalentNeuron or Drop or Lightcast or Joveo or other platforms. It's really about working hand to hand to be able to build those self-service platforms that TA or business stakeholder can access. So basically, TI can now focus on the other piece, which is the transformation and which is the workforce planning, and not necessarily operational workforce planning, but the strategic workforce planning or total workforce planning.
Yeah, and maybe we've already seen TI perform some version of this. We've seen companies, particularly tech companies, go through yet another round of layoffs, and it was quite interesting to see observe some of the commentary from the people who've been laid off, and they were quite confused as to how those decisions were made. I don't know whether anyone was monitoring the Amazon layoffs, for instance. We had a load of like super tenured people being there, employee number 25 saying, "Hey, me?" They couldn't believe it. And then you had even like people in the AI team, leaders of AI functions, also being laid off. And it gave me thinking, hang on, like, how were those decisions made? Were those decisions made in a very crude, okay, most expensive people, we've got to just chop those out? Or was there some talent intelligence at play? Like, does talent intelligence have a function to play when it comes down to these difficult moments where you have to reduce teams? You apply talent intelligence that you have to say, okay, what is the automatable component of the people in the business? Which are the areas we no longer want to invest in skills development in human beings? Where's the AI coming? Where's the capability? How do we replace? Do you think TI was involved in this latest round of layoffs? I guess David Wilkins.
At the risk of being too harsh, given that they laid off most of their own TI team, I'm going to go with probably not.
I didn't realize that.
But I do think you raise a really great point. I mean, we're actually working on an agent right now in our SWP engine that's an offboarding agent or a layoff assister, effectively, that kind of does what you said, Hung. It's like I want a 10% cost reduction target, but what I don't want to do is touch the talent that has the skills that's going to drive my strategy forward. Like, I don't want to inadvertently, cut the guts out of like my capability to achieve the business strategy, right? In theory, we're sitting on all that data, right? We know what skills people have. We know what skills the business has or should be aspiring to have. We know what tasks need to be accomplished relative to the overall business outcomes that are desired. There's no reason you can't just throw that into an AI or an agent to make better recommendations rather than human-led, biased, lack of information, lack of intel about the team. We know how this goes. We've all been through this a lot of times. It's usually not a very intelligent process, and we're sitting on all the intelligence to do it better. So I think your initial sort of play at like, how do you do this smartly? I actually think that lends itself really well to AI types of solutions or even agents to guide the process.
David, I would add that the questions that we ask are also going to have to change, because if we're asking questions based on something that's an outdated approach or structure, I mean, two silly examples.
Yeah, well, right.
Neither one is silly. If we discover, you ask your talent intelligence, you query it, what is the one thing my top competitors are doing in this geography that I'm not doing? The answer might be they have on-site daycare mentioned in all their job postings.
Yeah, bingo.
That's a fundamental shift. It's nothing to do with the workforce. It's to do with your company's mentality around support. Another one is, what are the top titles that my top competitors are hiring for that don't exist at my company today?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not a typical strategic workforce planning question. That planning question is, how many of that role do I need? If you don't even know what the role is that you should have. So the questions have to change as well. And the only way to change those questions is to more deeply understand what's happening around you and being able to query that.
Yep. Love it.
Super interesting, folks. Just keeping an eye on time. Realize that we're kind of up to time, so let's do a round robin as a takeaway. I mean, the people watching this could be talent intelligence professionals, HR people, generalist recruiters. What skills do you think a talent intelligence person needs going forward in their career in order to succeed? We might, like, everyone is subject to skills change, particularly when it comes to AI. Talent intelligence, no different. How has it changed your job, and what kind of skills do you think are going to make the future talent intelligence specialist succeed? Let's go with you first, Yuta. I'm just going to go round robin. So you're the first one. I'm afraid to say.
Oh, honestly, business strategy. It's for me the top skill, because all the others we have fundamentally integrated, but business strategy should be our main focus.
Yeah, so basically more commercial acumen, I guess, able to understand direction, vision of the company, etc., stuff like this.
Right.
Excellent stuff. And even deeper, what is the rhythm of the company? What is the thing that makes you different from other businesses? A lot of this may be quite nebulous, actually. But your ability to kind of grok it, if I can use that term today, it may be a big differentiator for you. Erin, Matthew?
So, as you know, I transitioned from a career in sourcing into talent intelligence. And as a sourcer, I had always said that the biggest in-demand skill that you would need to be successful in that role is curiosity. And I don't believe that that's changed now that I have gone into a talent intelligence role. Research is really about asking the correct questions and the right questions, and really just having a hunger to consume the right information and figure out how it's going to power the decisions that you make in the future. So I would say that curiosity is going to be key for anybody in a talent intelligence role in 2026.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to hire people who are curious. Second question, which you can't answer today, but can you cultivate curiosity? I think you can,
no.
But I'd be love to
I think it depends. I really feel like I truly believe that some people have an innate curiosity at a level that can't be taught. I really do believe that.
I can see Erin's encountered some possibly unpleasant work colleagues in the past. It's like dealing with a bunch of bricks here. I can't work with these people. No, I get what you're saying. I totally get it. I am an optimist. I think you can cultivate curiosity. I'll be interested to know if anybody agrees. Okay, Guillaume, your view. What would you look to, if you're hiring a TI person for your team, what would you look for?
Yeah, I will double down on what Ute said. Basically, the business acumen is super important because it is what will make you able to connect the dots. I think today you need to be able to distinguish signals within the noise. But in order to do that, you need to understand the business. You need to understand their challenges. You need to understand everything. If you don't do that, you will just do transactional stuff and reactive stuff. If you want to be able to really add value, to really be proactive and basically to be seen as a strategic partner, you need to have that business acumen. And it's not necessarily the commercial acumen, but it's really about understanding the business strategy, understanding the different functions, understanding the let's say the business development piece, the M&A piece. So I agree, it leads to curiosity. You need to be very curious to do that. You need to talk with a lot of people. You need to read a lot. You need to access a lot of data, etc. But at the end, I think business acumen is one of the top skill I would go for.
Yeah, very good, Guillaume. Adam Wardlaw, let's go to you on this. TI professional, if you were to hire one of those folks, what kind of thing would you look for?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Erin here. I'm really looking for curiosity, that kind of investigative mindset, the type of person who's going to question everything and just not take anything, for what it appears at first glance. Someone who's going to have the curiosity to then dig deeper and, explore how the data, can connect the dots across different areas of the organization.
Yeah, I think that's, again, one of those nebulous for me is a positive term, the ability to understand the institution itself beyond, the stats, so to say. That's something I think will come into play as a high value thing. David Wilkins, take us away. You are working for one of the preeminent talent intelligence functions out there, organizations out there. If you were bringing on staff to your crew, what kind of people, what kind of skills are you looking for?
So I wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said to this point. I'm going to go very cliche and say you better know AI, you better understand agent technology, both as a user of this stuff, because increasingly I think we're going to see probabilistic models bump up against deterministic frameworks, the traditional statistical analysis, alongside LLM usage, and where the one is good and one complements the other. But I also think, as we're thinking about those technologies, we need to understand the potential impacts on the business around job redesign, org redesign, the role that those things are going to do in propagating through the business. And if folks don't have a at least passing, level of understanding of what these things can do and how they operate, it's going to be hard to have that kind of intuitive and even analytical capability to then dig into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to share a comment that Erin put into the chat. Absolutely. A brilliant segue maybe to a part 2, but as AI agents start kind of infiltrating into the workforce, maybe infiltrating, not the right term, but you know what I mean, diffusing into your workflows, diffusing into your companies, like they're going to be active. They're going to do stuff that then has second, third order effects. What does that mean for us in workforce planning? I don't think anybody has a clue about that right now. So yeah, maybe something we've got to talk about going forward. Okay, great stuff. We have to leave it there. Uta's already had to go. Busy lady, quite right. Great to have you on the show, Uta. Great to see you, Erin, as well. Guillaume, Adam, David, thank you for joining. Wonderful to have your intelligence on this show. We need that human intelligence to talk about this topic. So thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, Hung. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Oh, Yaz is gone as well. That's okay. I was going to keep Yaz on for a bit, but no worries. I hope you enjoyed the show, folks, as much as I did. I love it when I start wandering into topics where I am absolutely not an expert. So super interesting to have that dialogue. I think talent intelligence is another topic we should probably revisit before the year is out. Okay, that's about it. We are back next week. We are talking actually adjacent to one of the things I raised today, reduction in force, leadership lessons from TA leaders who've had to have done it. This is a tough one, folks. But I think if you are a TA leader or any functional leader, to be honest, you have to be familiar with, or at least conscious of, sort of how to lead through a crisis. If you're asked to reduce your headcount in your team to achieve a kind of an efficiency gain by letting go of staff, how best to go ahead and do that? What are the procedures? What are the processes? We have a brilliant sort of a list of panelists to join us for this show. It's going to be leadership lessons from people who've done it before. So make sure you follow the channel if you want to be updated on that. You can register on the show already. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, just follow my page. It should be broadcast on LinkedIn as well. Okay, that's about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend.